Hello, everyone. This is Matt Stewart here with Complete CRM, and I'm going to be taking you through a walkthrough of the system today to kind of show you how the different components come together and give you some ideas when you're using and showing this to your clients, how you can kind of present the software and how everything's integrated together and kind of give you a good idea of how the foundation of it works. Now, I know many of our partners are also integrating and doing very specific things with systems that they use. So, depending on how that's all been set up and done, it could be different from what we're offering here. But the main thing I want to kind of get across is to give you an idea of the flow and kind of how our sales team is presenting this to clients and showing them through the software. So we're going to start off on the dashboard screen here. This is the first screen when you log in. So it's a nice way to start off the demo with a visual kind of what's going on in the system and kind of show that there's a lot of different data and things you can get insight to right when you log in. One of the things I always like to point out on this screen is that it's fully customizable. So depending on the role of the individual, whether they're more sales, marketing, operations focused, they're going to be able to select and manage different widgets accordingly. So someone on the sales team obviously can be very interested in tracking opportunities, looking at activities, that sort of thing. So a number of these widgets will pull up for you. So I can click on this. I can see what activities have been taking place. If I click on the follow-ups here, we can see the individuals that have been followed up with, the activities there, what types of actions are going on. So it's a good way to kind of show the insight that someone can gain. And again, it's very flexible with the ability. So down here at the bottom, you can hit Customize Dashboard, and this allows me to add and remove different things. So if I want to add a widget, move something around, I can do that. If I want to pop this one over here, I can save the layout. So good way there to demonstrate kind of the flexibility with this screen. Also, on the left-hand side, you're able to view the task list that's associated. So if you have things that are due, you can get a good idea of what's coming due and what you have on your plate for that day. Now, one of the fundamental things with our platform that's really important to explain is the group architecture of the system. So I have a couple different groups in this account, and we'll go in and take a look at the profile. But what's really important is when you look at these groups is basically the way someone can manage the contacts that they're working with. So are those leads? Are those current clients? What type of contact is it? So the groups are a great way to kind of give that overall designation to who the individual is that's in the CRM. And because this is a fully integrated sales and marketing tool, it's also going to allow you to utilize those segmentations in both ways. So when we're going to send out emails, which we'll take a look at, you're able to send out an email, pull the segment. So those groups are a great way to do that from an overall standpoint. But what's really key inside the system to kind of explain to a company is the ability to use the custom user fields is what they're called in the settings here. So user fields are very key in order to customize and set up the system for the company and the client that you're working with. Now, again, in the partner relationship program with Complete CRM, a lot of these user fields, depending on kind of your niche market and who you're working with, can be pre-built within the system. So you may have user fields that are already set and ready to go, kind of depending on their industry or what they need there. They're going to be able to add user fields, implement those as well. So this is a great kind of area here where you're managing that. So any of these you click on, you can see, what the user field is, what it's shared with. So all kind of more detailed settings, but usually through kind of the sales demo process, keep it pretty high level with touching on those user fields, but just give them an idea of how useful they are and how it really helps, customize the system for their business. Along with that, what's really key, and we're going to go into a profile, is explaining the flexibility they have to display that data. So we have a visibility settings area. So the visibility settings is where you can fully customize everything and organize all your fields. So when you're organizing your fields, it allows you to move things around into different clusters if you need to, label those. So that's a really important piece to being able to use that data we were just looking at and format it correctly. So when we go into the CRM now, you're going to see the contacts area here. So the contacts and companies are kind of your two main go-to screens to be able to access your data. It allows you to access it in different ways. So you can pull data off filters that you're utilizing. You can pull things based off of certain information. So in here on the left-hand side, I'm able to search and filter contacts based off any of those user fields that I've set up. So now with those fields, with the contacts we see over here at the right, we can see all the contacts that are residing within this group. I can also use the filters over here to search through multiple groups. So if I wanted to use and find other contacts, I don't need to necessarily go back up here to the drop down to do that. So when we pull up one of these contacts here, so we'll go back and show the contacts that are in this group. So if I grab Ryan here, we pull up his record. So again, you can use those filters to search on anything you want to over here on the left-hand side. And then when we go here, we can click on Ryan's information. So when I go into Ryan's contact info here, we can see there's those data fields that I was referring to. So we can see them displayed here. We can see information. So if we need to gather any data, look at the info there, we can. What's also important, I think, to really show how the different pieces come together is to show the activities area here. So the activities is really where all the components come together for this contact. So what types of actions have been taking place? Do we need to document things that we've done with this individual? So if this is a lead or a client, we can put in information. Maybe we're making a note, putting a follow-up, documenting a meeting that we've done. If I need to assign things over to someone else, I can also go in here and assign those sort of things. If I needed someone else on the team to accomplish something with a lead or a contact, I can. So really good ways to collaborate. So when you're working with a company, you're really pointing out that the collaboration and the ability and the insight you're going to get by having all the data in one location is going to be very strong. The other thing when it comes to supporting information, so do you need to attach a file or a document? You can go in here and grab that right from your computer and add those documents. If you're utilizing or doing anything with proposal generation or e-signature, our tool has the ability to pull and create templates in here. So once you populate templates, you'll be able to locate them here and then load them. So those can have signing placeholders in there. So great way as a part of the sales process. Along with that, we can also see if part of the sales, if we need to give a quote or send out an invoice, the system does have those capabilities. So depending on kind of what the process is of that sale or what they're doing with the client, you have those additional pieces of functionality over there on the right-hand side. And then also with the ticketing aspects, which kind of falls into more of the operational components of the system, that's all feeding in here as well. So if you're doing ongoing tickets with a client, things like that, you will be able to access and see those tickets over here on the right-hand side. And then in the middle here, this is kind of the really important piece to see all kind of the history and information with the client. So this captures kind of every touch point with them. So have they opened an email, clicked on a link, onto the website? So we can see here, Ryan's been on to this specific particular page of the website here. As we scroll down, I can see, we have a ticket that was part of there. So the tickets are also documented and timestamped in the timeline there. I see more web activities that are going on here. We do have conversion tracking. So kind of depending on what the client is using, there are ways to automatically track kind of stages that they'll hit as part of your marketing and sales efforts. But what really I like to point out here is just really the complete kind of information that you get on all the touch points. So rather than having that disconnect between the sales and marketing or just kind of documenting things separately, you're able to see the information, the reads there. So I always like to point out and go through this timeline just to really show, that capability. And typically with going through the demos, I don't kind of go through, or you don't necessarily have to go through every tab. Obviously, when questions come up, you'll be answering those. But what's really key, if they are doing things with like digital advertising or tracking, there's ways to add attribution and connect like PPC efforts. So if you're assisting with that, or they want to set that up, there's ways to do that. So just again, kind of depending on what their overall needs are, there are ways to show like overall tracking stats. So again, you can kind of go through those tabs, but what's really, I think the most important is pointing out the contact info tab, and then also especially taking them through and showing them the activity history. So that's going to be key with kind of getting into the nitty gritty of the record there. What's also nice to do is to go through I like to go through most of these tabs here. So I always just kind of reference contacts and companies and the ability to filter and find data in that way. But what's also really key in the system is the ability to have kind of a larger to-do list area. So this is where we can go in. I can see actions I need to do, stuff that needs to happen. So that's all customizable. So again, a great way for them to keep on top of all their tasking and what they have to do. Same idea if they're tracking opportunities. So I can go in here and see boards. I can drag and drop through this process. So you can really explain to them the ability to fully customize and set up. You can even do multiple sales paths within here. So you can really set up and customize everything within the opportunity. So really tracking that sales process. And then along with that, really highlighting. So, we don't have any specific activity in the last 12 hours here, but with utilizing our lead scoring, that's going to be a way for you to help them track and kind of see who is the most engaged and the most interested. So there's different ways you can set that up and score it for them, but it's a really easy to run report. So they could say, last 4 days, show me anyone who scored, 10 points. So we can generate reports. So depending, we had no contacts in this particular group that have hit that total, but you can run, different data and information from there. So once the contacts are live and active, you'll be able to display that information for them. But it's good to point out because they may not right away have the lead scoring set up, but that's something over here in this area under automation, you can help them establish what their point scoring is going to be, and then it will accumulate and bring that data into the CRM for you. So that's going to be kind of key with going through the contact area. So again, we kind of it's basically stripped down to these 6 main tabs I like to highlight and focus on, but that's kind of the flow of going through the CRM area. And then really from there, depending, obviously things come up when you're demoing with clients, they have different questions, but what I really like to show, because I think from kind of the showing the sales components into the other marketing side, is really to demonstrate how those two are very connected. Same thing with how the operational and kind of those tools are there as well. But with the marketing, usually we'll go in and display the ability and kind of the tools to create and add templates. Now, again, with the partnership, you may have a lot of these templates already pre-built for the clients and kind of be handling that for them. But what's nice in here is it gives you tools so you can go in here, you can add sections to a template, customize the data. So I always just point out it's very flexible in terms of what you can create or what your messaging is. And then I really break it down into kind of 2 really main levels of marketing pieces in here that are utilized. So the first one I always reference is replacing, Constant Contact or MailChimp. So when I go into communicate here, under the Easy Builder, which is where you can create the templates, you now can use the emailer tool. So the emailer tool is a great way to display. So from here, we're able to go in and access templates. So again, we can access pre-built templates that are in here if we wanted to. So we have quite a few templates. And again, this is where if you're creating certain templates, those can be added in here as well. So any templates you click on the left, you can preview that information over here on the right. So here's one of our complete CRM templates. We can load that template. And what I really like to display here is that there's the ability, once you have this ready to go, it's very easy to segment and use the CRM information that's already been set up. So whether that's pulling a segment based on those overall groups like we were talking about, so if I need to go in and access different groups here to update my list, or whether I'm sending within this particular group and I'm also needing to update and filter off particular information. So there are the exact same filters that we were looking at in the CRM that are right there for us in the marketing side. So very nicely interconnected where you can pull those contacts easily, kind of have that ready to go. So I always like to show that there, how it's very easy to customize and segment lists. Also in this area, you can point out additional types of filters. So if they want to do like a location filter base and filter off of like previous emails that have been delivered. So that's always something I just point out. I don't usually go too far into those to keep it, basically displaying that there's the ability to really segment and get, very granular in what you want to send. And then there's also ability to save these filters as well. So a lot of times when we go back here, if there is a particular filter, we can load that or we can create a new one. So just nice ways to kind of manage how you're doing that segmentation. And then from this area, I always like to point out, there's also the ability here to integrate social accounts. So the three that are you can have your clients connect are Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So those are connected here, so you can have them add their accounts. And the reason it's in this kind of broadcast area is it does have the option here to allow you to send this email broadcast to view as a web page. So you can send it out and actually create a link in here. So if you want to broaden your audience, have them give them the ability to see that, you can do that by adding that option, or you can post separate messaging here as well. And then below that, when we go down here, it's basically, very simple, creating and picking the date and time that you want to send that, queuing the message, and then that will send out to the group and post to the social accounts if you've chosen that option. And then from there, really, once this has been sent out, what's really key is obviously to show the ability to track. So we have all the open, clicks, reads, all that sort of thing. Another tool in here, you may or may not want to go into this if they're talking about A/B testing, and that's really important. The campaign optimizer is a great tool to be able to pick like a list and do kind of an automated A/B test. So you can choose and create like different messaging styles. So you can access your templates here, load them, send out to a test sample of the audience here. And basically from there, it will pick the best performing template and then send out the additional to the additional rest of the audience, the best one. So kind of an automated A/B testing. It's something that is worth pointing out, again, depending on kind of what exactly you're doing with them and kind of what level of detail they want with the email marketing side to things. But of course, when anyone's sending a broadcast email or anything, you definitely want to go in and point out the track email. So when I go here, I can pick like the broadcast here. I can put a summary here. I can see the information. So I can see the overall read stats here. So I can also change this data to raw data. If you click on the information, the contacts associated with that will display. I can see, what the information was here, what was in that template. So just a good way to track all of that. You can even get into things like what types of browsers were they using. So I'll kind of display that. Definitely when you're showing this information, I'm not going in and out of every single, different graph here, but just showing them there's a lot of different reporting and data that they'll have access to. And that's included for all types of emails that are sending out. So whether they're automated emails or just regular broadcast emails like we were looking at. Once from there, the next thing that I think is really important to show, especially if the automation pieces are important. Now, I usually like to reference and talk about kind of automation in two different ways within the system. So there's the journeys, which is heavily kind of related to email marketing automation, although there's components and the ability in the system to have journeys do and kick off all sorts of things, including tasking and follow-ups and things like that. But when I talk about kind of the two sides of the email, there's that base kind of broadcast email marketing, but then also when we go in here, I usually like to load up like a sample journey. So if we have like a certain journey here where it just kind of shows, or even start to build this out for them. So depending on what you have kind of loaded in the account you're demoing with, you can do that. So maybe I just say I relate it to three main components. So there's actions, delays, and decisions. So the actions are actually sending the email. Usually that's followed by some sort of a delay. So it's really nice to show them the drag and drop capability here on how this can be used. So even kind of setting something up like this can show, hey, it's really easy to be able to pull these pieces together. So as you can see here, we have an action, delay, then a decision. So when I go here, when I click on the action box, it's going to give you the ability to choose from your email templates. So everything's very universal when you create those templates that you're able to access. So I can grab, this template here that we have. I can save that into the action. Maybe when I send this, we want to set a certain delay. So when I go into the delay piece here, I could set this, 24 hours. Maybe I want to delay it for 48 hours, for example, so I can save that there, set the delay. And then the decisions are going to be very key. The decisions can get very robust, kind of depending on what they want to use. But you'll see, I usually like to point out, there's your standard, usually decisions that are used quite often, reading an email, clicking on it, visiting a web page if you're doing web tracking. Maybe you set up a survey, so they're using the ability to survey, or they've watched a video. So what I really like to point out here is there's a number of different choices that can be utilized when it comes to automation. So once a decision is clicked, so maybe I'm just going to say read previous email. So they have to read that previous email at least once. So I'm going to save that there. And basically the way that these work is you're branching off through a process. So you have a true false on each one of those decision boxes. So let's say they did read it, then I want to send another email here. Or maybe if they read it, I want to have something triggered. So what I like to also point out is not only is this used as, just an email automation tool and the ability to send a sequence like that, but the actions also give you the ability to utilize and activate what are called workflows. Now, when you're doing the demos, when I go into this, there's different workflows. So depending again on kind of what the client is expecting and what their knowledge is of automation and how they're using this, I don't necessarily go too deep into all the workflow ins and outs, but I do like to make sure I point out that, workflows are basically kind of a task automation and also an automation tool that can also do additional things like changing client information and data. So the workflow manager is kind of where you handle those. But what's really good to point out is that their automation sequences can include a mixture of things, and workflows are kind of what accomplishes the additional pieces to that if it's not email related. So when they read this email, do we want to get, a follow-up, a new lead follow-up, or do we want to alert a sales team member? So workflows are going to give you the ability to tag those into the journeys and then manage that. So it gives you good flexibility on kind of what you can build out. You can save those, work off of them in the future. And again, these are things on the partnership Complete CRM side where you could be pre-building a lot of these. So a lot of these flows and what you're adding and offering to the client could already be set up and organized for them accordingly. So that's something that's important, and will already be there for them to pick this sort of stuff up. But under automation, the other one I do, again, if they want to go into the workflow management area, I will show. So the workflow manager does allow you to basically kind of organize, kind of like you're organizing your email templates, except they're, individual sort of sequences here you're putting together, but you can organize them into folders. And then when you go into the workflows, again, there are the ability to show them like, there's trigger actions. You can modify contacts in here. So workflows can allow us to set data. Workflows can also be used to send out calls and trigger to external systems. So again, there's a lot of detailed capability. Usually with again, the sales side of the demo, you want to generally keep it relatively high level and less specific questions. But these are all things through our training process and everything that we'll be going into in much more detail. But I always like to point out too, the workflows, certainly creating activities as part of the workflows. So creating a sequence, once this happens, we want, tasks 1, 2, and 3 to take place. So that's all something that can be set up and managed from within the workflows. So that's going to be an important piece there to point out under the automation and kind of touch on what the marketing capabilities are. Now, what also is really key to this is the ability to also kind of utilize and point out the additional features. So this piece will kind of depend on what you're providing the client. So there could be specifics and ways, you may be very focused on lead management or marketing. So some of the additional tools I would fall under the apps here when it comes to ticketing, projects. Those are all areas of the demo. Again, I think on kind of a basis of if it's something that's going to be really important to that organization, I will go in and show, okay, you can set up and manage projects in here. So very similar to like the sales board, you can create stages from within here. So these are all areas where you can create and kind of preset things within here as you go through that. So the projects is definitely, I think, a heavily used one when it comes to some of the operational tools. Also, pointing out the ticketing management system. So this does give you the ability to manage, set up like ticket categories, auto assign things. So usually more on like the customer service side, they can be used in a sales environment as well to manage incoming inquiries, but like you can manage who's on the ticket team, if they're, interested in setting up and managing a team, this is certainly an area to point out here. But from there, so I really like to touch on those kind of additional components of the system based on, the needs of the client. I usually like to take the conversation, depending on, if this is an existing client and you're kind of adding this functionality, obviously you're going to talk about what it is and what the pricing is. So kind of the flow will usually go into, going back, maybe showing a price sheet, things of that nature. I always like to point out the ability to manage and get help and information. So you're going to have, certain methods. So like of accessing and supplying support to your clients. But within here, you know, we have all the pre-built things about the features, so you can point out and make sure, you know, they're comfortable with utilizing that. Maybe part of your process is going to be to provide a trial account. So this is a, you know, good time to discuss kind of what the next steps are. I usually then, you know, throughout the demo, as I was going through there, you know, when you're live with a client, I'm usually pausing through a lot of those sections as I'm going from the dashboard into the contacts, you know, seeing if they have any questions on anything. Do they need clarification, making sure everything makes sense as I go through the demo. So that's something that I'm usually checking on. But I usually talk about, like to talk about the support. You know, depending, again, it's kind of up to how you're implementing this. You know, is it already pre-built for them? Are you going to give them a trial? So that's where I kind of take the conversation into more of those, you know, talking about next steps and kind of how this could be utilized, and also, you know, opening it up to any other topics or features they need for their business or interested in. But again, a lot of that will be guided by how you're presenting this to the client, because I know, you know, in the obviously the partnership channel, you know, there's a lot of add-ons and things and specifics that you're already aware of and kind of already built out for the client. But that's going to be kind of the overview. I usually, you know, if you're wanting to end on something more visual, I will sometimes go back over to the dashboards to kind of have more of a visual sort of cue as you're wrapping things up, or if that's going to, you know, into the website. So going back and showing, we'll go in and show the packages and kind of that information on the site here. So kind of depending, but that I would say would be kind of our standard flow. And, you know, every client can be a little different and a lot of questions can come up, but I hope that's helpful with walking you through kind of the structure and how a lot of our sales team shows the platform and demos the different features. So thanks a lot for tuning in and taking the time to listen to this, and feel free to reach out to our team if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.